talking about Daphne
Mm.
with y'all before, and I expressed that maybe the reason why Curtis had a problem was because he didn't realize she was a Diddy doo-wop bop before him.
Yep, you said that.
And maybe she might have brought some things to him.
When the courtroom doors finally swung open and the jury read out a shocking not guilty verdict, the air should have lifted. It should have felt like relief, like the end of a nightmare. But for Jaguar Wright, and for the few who have seen beyond the masks in this industry, it felt like another layer of rot had just been painted over the
People it was put on that put them down and put them out.
Exactly.
They didn't care. Yeah, see, I'm more interested in that. I'm more interested in all of the people that were throwing up sixes, all of the people that were having their little Illuminati symbols on. There was a lot of that going on at that courthouse. Matter of fact, I saw that guy that they sent to accost me when I refused to talk to TMZ. The way my security detail had to literally spin that around because he refused to leave me alone. Like they were staging that at the courthouse just so that they could make the spectacle that we saw happen.
Do you agree with the family, Diddy's family, going there each time to just be part of that conversation? What was being
That's what
testimony?
Illuminati do. Ain't that what Rihanna did for ASAP Rocky when Tokapina got him off on a case that he surely should have went to jail for? But then her daddy died and don't nobody actually know why, so...
Hey.
I mean, you know, one nigga to save another, I don't know.
Hey.
I'll tell you what I do know. He ain't had no problem with dropping her off and letting her go up there to New York so she could be threatened to be thrown out of a window or collect a check. That I do know. God, you know, God rest his soul. I mean, they seem to be handling it real well. He died and they're off in Paris having a ball. That's funny. As we speak, I have more people coming through on my channel talking about how they got kicked out of my channel, how they're being thrown out of my channel left and right. Wonder why.
Interesting. Let me ask you, how quickly that verdict came in. Did it go quicker than you expected, or did you expect them to take
because they
longer?
were deliberating before they went in to deliberate. You heard what this guy is, this alternate, this Mr. Bean, Dr. Ozish looking guy. He does. He looks like Dr. Oz's son. You know, it's just so odd because he was an alternate juror. I don't even believe he was in the room, but yet he said that they were talking about it before deliberations, and all of the jurors were given specific instructions not to be talking about any of this. But then again, when you refuse to sequester the jury and you have a bunch of, you know, weirdo YouTubers that are sleeping on street corners hoping that people will send them donations so they can go and stay at a hostel because they couldn't afford $750 a night. They definitely couldn't afford the suite that I stayed in while I was there. That was $1,500 a night. You know, I just find it interesting that nobody thought that all of those little weirdo YouTubers weren't getting on trains and following some of those jurors home. Allegedly. I got 3 names. I wonder when I'm going to tell people and who I'm going to tell. Ooh.
You can tell us, Jack.
Oh no, I wouldn't dare do that.
And she wasn't about to stay silent. Not now. Not after everything. Not after seeing how far the machine would go to protect one of its most powerful players. Because what came next wasn't celebration. It was rage. It was raw, unfiltered truth from a woman who's been in the room, who's heard the whispers, who's seen the shadows moving just behind the curtain. Jaguar Wright didn't wait for the cameras to settle or the industry to catch its breath. She stepped forward with a fire that couldn't be ignored. And when she opened her mouth, The stories poured out like gasoline. The verdict had stunned everyone. Despite a mountain of allegations, years of rumors, whispered warnings, and silent victims, the courtroom gave Diddy a pass. And while his legal team celebrated in hushed tones and fans debated in confusion online, Jaguar came forward to remind the world that a courtroom win doesn't mean innocence. Not in an industry where power buys silence, and silence buries truth. She didn't mince words. She didn't speak in riddles or innuendos. She dropped names. She connected dots. She told the kind of stories that make people shift in their seats and rethink everything they thought they knew. And what she revealed didn't just cast a shadow over Diddy's career.
To your channel. You know, the one thing I don't want to do is piss the feds off so much that they feel as though they need to come and talk to me and tell me that I'm not allowed to be online no more. We gonna play fair.
Let's play fair. And I know you spoke on Pierce Morgan. You know, and we got to go back to it. Vlad was on Pierce Morgan with Tony Busby, and
you know who else was recently on Pierce Morgan too? Ariel Mitchell. You still platforming her, huh? Pierce, you want to sit up there and you want to go back and forth with her about Diddy, but you don't want to ask her about why she put me in a lawsuit, named me as a Diddy employee of the criminal enterprise that now people are saying doesn't exist, and you had me doing all kinds of crazy things that it was earlier reported that Christina Coram did when I was in jail in Chicago. I'm just trying to figure out, you want to press people, you want to press Superhead. I tell you one thing that I do know, Corinne Stephens knows how to get paid. God bless her. Or should I say Elizabeth Olsen? I mean, that's what she prefers to be called now. I bet you she'll have just as nice a car as Gina Hunt real soon if she don't have it already. But you know, I just find it interesting that you want to run down on Ariel Mitchell Kid about how fallible she is and everything. Why didn't you? I'm sorry, not Kid, because she dropped the Kid. You don't want to ask her about why she put my name in a lawsuit with a real Diddy victim that you're representing, that you've done nothing with that case for. She wasn't on that stand. She wasn't on that stand, but you made sure she was in that documentary. But she wasn't on that stand. But you wanted to take Diddy down. But you got a real victim who was essayed with a remote control. And you were so pissed off that I made you look like an idiot and that I took down your whole team, your whole team of your band of merry weirdo client, Courtney Burgess. That idiot actually sat there on Sean Atwood's platform and had the audacity to say that he saw me in the Diddy tapes that he had essaying my deceased son. Where's the tapes? Because she surely got on News Nation and said, before she got on Pierce Morgan, pretending to be an ally, hoping that I would want to retain her so you could do a bang-up job on my life.
Cast a shadow over an entire generation of hip-hop, over the very structure of the industry that protected him. According to Jaguar, the behavior we're only now seeing glimpses of through lawsuits, interviews, and investigations was never a secret to those on the inside. These weren't isolated incidents. These were rituals. This was culture, protected by wealth, guarded by lawyers, and enabled by fear.
And did he?
He wasn't just a participant. He was a ringleader. Jaguar spoke of parties that turned into nightmares, of young artists lured in with promises of fame only to find themselves trapped in situations they couldn't escape, of producers, managers, label execs, all complicit, all silent. And the worst part, she claimed the silence wasn't out of ignorance. It was survival. In her words, if you ever tried to speak out, your career was done before it started. She described the kind of power Diddy wielded. Not just industry power, but personal power, psychological control, emotional warfare. She spoke of artists who came in bright-eyed and eager, who left broken and confused. She described a system that feeds on innocence and spits out compliance. And through it all, she made one thing clear. This wasn't just about one man. It was about a machine that has always existed behind the music. But Diddy was the face of it, the poster child, the proof that if you play the game right, if you learn the rules and use them to your advantage, you can do anything. And still.
I'm sorry, somebody that you've been jailing with for quite some time that you was all right, and then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he was looking at your girl, or he was talking to your girl, and you got to poke him up 14 times on the first day of Diddy's trial.
How did you feel about the Punisher testimony?
I feel sorry for him that he decided to play the role of idiot and run around talking about erectile dysfunction and breaking down and not being able to perform. I feel sorry for him. You know who I feel more sorry for, though? Pierce Morgan and Vladimir Lyuski. Vladimir, I've never been a DJ ever in my life, but it makes people feel more comfortable with talking about me when I'm lining them up for cases, allegedly. That, you know, those pasty pimps.
Why do you feel so sorry for them?
Because that's what y'all call journalism? Talking to a bunch of dick-slinging weirdos? That's journalism? So they could sit there and call a woman a whore who was beaten repeatedly. I wish people would stop sitting there acting like that tape was the only time he put his hands on her.
Right.
There are other witnesses that gave testimony that they seen him beat her. It was put in Cassie's lawsuit that Usher was present watching Diddy. But see, I guess people, they not paying attention to what's going on, see. See, they needed to cut everybody else out to make sure that nobody got forced to testify because, you know, RICO hurts. See, everybody's afraid of the word RICO. Don't nobody want to get caught up in it. You want to know why there was no testimony for him when it came time?
Walk free. Jaguar painted a picture of an empire built not just on music, but on manipulation, fear, and exploitation. She called out the enablers, the collaborators, and the ones who looked the other way. And when she got to the present day, to the verdict that sent shockwaves through the industry, she didn't hold back. "You think a not guilty verdict makes him clean?" she asked. "You think that courtroom wasn't built by the same people who've been covering for him this whole time? You don't get justice in a system that's built to protect the powerful. You get performances, you get illusions." And as she spoke, something shifted because Jaguar Wright wasn't just venting. She was connecting the dots that others were too afraid to even acknowledge. She brought up the parties, the freak-offs, the nights that people still whisper about but never speak of on record. She talked about the people who went into those rooms and never came out the same. And she asked the one question everyone's been dodging. How many careers? How many lives have been destroyed just to protect this man's image? She referenced young stars who disappeared from the spotlight under mysterious circumstances. She spoke about the stories that got buried, the interviews that never aired, the lawsuits that settled before they saw daylight. And as she laid it all out, it became harder and harder to dismiss her as just another voice crying wolf, because her voice carried weight. Her history gave her credibility. She'd seen it up close. She'd felt the cold grip of the machine. And now she was daring it to come for her. She didn't stop there.
Celebrating the verdict, what are your thoughts?
Well, my entire time looking at the case, the charges, and listening, to the evidence as it came in during trial, I thought that depending upon how a person, be it a juror, be it the public, comes into the trial believing how someone who's a victim should act and how they believe relationships can evolve or devolve and fall apart is the lens that they would then make their verdict. Why I say that is because if you think a person who's battered, someone who's been a victim, someone who's been assaulted in the ways that were described, most people have an idea as to how they will respond and act towards that, or their expectation if it happened to their loved one, how they'd expect their loved one to act. And in those situations, you don't expect someone to be tweeting, you don't expect somebody to be sending texts telling their abuser that they love them or that they want more of what took place. However, there are other people who see it from maybe more so the lens of a victim or someone who's been abused, who would say, you know what, that's not so beyond the pale of reason, because the abuse has been so entrenched in this person's mind that they then fall in love with their abuser. And so that's not something that they would, look askance upon or look down upon. So, one of the things about being in trial that I always remind my clients, is that despite all the rules that the judge gives people, no one leaves their life experience or their opinions at the courthouse door. It all makes its way into the courtroom and ultimately into the jury room. And that's why you can see such people who are on one side, like celebrating Diddy being acquitted on the much more serious charges, and other people who are like, how did this happen? I am upset. I feel like victims did not get justice today.
Right, exactly. And emotions did run really high, especially when the verdict came down, because I think I myself was pretty surprised at some of the jury's decisions in relation to some of the charges where they found him not guilty. But, obviously they made their decision. They listened to the evidence. They saw all the exhibits, and they made the decision that they did. And say come sentencing that Sean Combs is sentenced to maybe a couple years behind bars in prison. But do you think even after this trial, after everything that we've learned, after the many civil lawsuits that were also filed, do you think that there's any type of way that Sean Combs can have a comeback at this point?
Well, I think there's certainly a comeback that could be crafted and created in which we as the public may see. Listen, this is a person who has lived his life in the public light, in the limelight, for decades, okay? And so, as has been said before, fame is one of the more addictive or most addictive drugs known to man. And so he was a very famous, and now some might say infamous.
She challenged the very foundation of the music industry. She called out the culture of silence, the normalization of abuse, the way fame is dangled like a carrot to force compliance. She accused the big names, the mogul, the execs, the artists of knowing exactly what was happening and choosing to say nothing. And she didn't do it for clicks or clout. She did it because she's tired. Tired of watching the same cycle play out. Tired of watching victims get buried while predators get celebrated. And if you were listening closely, you'd hear the exhaustion in her voice. But you'd also hear the fire, the refusal to back down, the absolute commitment to tearing down the facade. Because for Jaguar, this isn't just personal. It's spiritual. It's about truth, about justice, about finally exposing the rot beneath the gloss. As her revelations made the rounds online, the responses came flooding in. Some dismissed her. Some called her bitter or crazy, but others started connecting the dots themselves. Suddenly, old stories started resurfacing. Old interviews took on new meaning. And that carefully constructed image Diddy had maintained for decades, it started to crumble. Because no matter how many court victories he stacks up, no matter how many PR teams try to spin the narrative, you can't outrun the truth forever. And when someone like Jaguar Wright stands up and refuses to be silenced, the whole game shifts. This wasn't just another moment of celebrity drama. This was a reckoning, a breaking of the unspoken code. And while Diddy might still walk free, his legacy now drips with questions that can't be ignored. The verdict may have cleared his name in the eyes of the law, but in the court of public opinion, the trial is just beginning. Jaguar Wright didn't just speak out. She ignited a fire. And now the industry has a choice. Keep pretending,